Hello, everyone. Welcome to I Am Crafting a World, a conversation with Consultant Matthew Reynolds. I am Trena Bolden Fields, and I'm excited to be on with you today. I am a strategist, certified coach, therapist, and chief operations officer. I look forward to helping people do the work that they're here to do in the world. And Matthew and I had a conversation and decided to come together about this crafting a world because he also does great work in the world. And he's here to do the work that he's here to do. So we thought we would hop on and share a little bit with you all today in conversation about what does crafting a world mean? What does that look like and how you can go about it within your organizations, and within the work that you may be doing, and really put forward a new world in this time and in this season. And Matthew comes to us with a beautiful background spanning across equity, advocacy, performing arts, education, consulting, and being a seasoned facilitator, a seasoned educator. And he blends storytelling, research, and his lived experience to help people and organizations foster inclusive environments where creativity, identity, and belonging thrive. So, welcome, Matthew. It is so good to have you with us again.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Trina. It always just feels really good within like my being when we come together and we go live because it really helps me ground. And I also know that there's going to be some juicy sparks where I'm going to get sparked to be thinking in new ways or some new ideas or things like that. It just kind of comes with the territory when we get together and start speaking. So thank you so much for having me here, Trina.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. And I believe today's topic is really important about crafting a world. Because, as you know, many people in the US and around the world are impacted by what's happening, yes, globally, but specifically in the United States, and how people are being impacted in their workplaces, in their homes, within schools. And so I want to check in with you to see if you have any thought about that and what's happening in regards to how we can, like, this crafting a world, but we're someplace else right now, right? So I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to that, and then we go through and talk a little bit more. And you all, this will be a conversation. Please feel free to keep notes,
Mm.
drop comments, because we can also take a Q&A at the end of our conversation, but we'll start by chatting a bit. So, Matthew, what are your thoughts?
Trina, when this first hit, and a lot of folks were having the emotional response that they were to what was initially happening. For some people, it was shock, and dismay that they couldn't understand that this was really occurring, that this was really happening. And I think that the bamboozle of supremacy culture, of the status quo and dominant culture, that right to comfort, really got people into this mindset and into this frame that everything was going to be okay, that it
Mhm.
was could never get that bad. And now that we have, well over a year in Gaza and the genocide happening there, and the genocide in the Congo and other places where we have Killmonger, or not Killmonger, his name went right out of my head because I said the wrong name. The man that has been taken to El Salvador wrongfully,
Mhm.
um, and that whole thing and the due process thrown right out the window, and this current administration not listening to our highest judicial system,
Mhm.
and all these things, I think, continually lead to show. And it's not to say I told you so in any way, shape, or form. It's not to shame and guilt or to try to get people to do things now that they're in this moment of despair or hopelessness. That's not where I'm crafting a world comes from. Okay. And I want people to really understand that and take that in, that there, myself, you, and many, many, many others, thousands of other people have seen what this system has done to humanity. And we're already inviting people into crafting this new world, crafting a new way that wasn't based in the oppression of anyone, that wasn't based in an extractive mindset and ideology, that really allows our humanity to be what leads. It's not necessarily about only technology and new inventions or new health, uh, what's the word, inventions or anything like that. It really is going, what is at the base of all of that?
Mhm.
Us as human beings.
Mhm.
In a lot of those areas, our humanity has been left out and not thought about. It all of a sudden quickly shifts in a capitalistic society to this mindset of making money. How do I make money off of this? How do I prosper off of this? Because a lot of folks are basing that in it. And so when that gets disrupted in ways where people feel totally chaotic and out of touch with it, we have what I'm seeing happening right now with a lot of folks is they're dysregulated. They don't know what to do next. They don't have any direction. And I'm here to say there is direction.
There is direction. Thank you for sharing that with me. And I want to go back a little bit. So the men who you referred to as Kilmar Garcia, who is in a prison in El Salvador. And I want to take us back a little bit because you mentioned that that there's this right to comfort. I want to like go back a little bit before that there's this right to comfort. And I'm wondering, what does that mean? How has that shown up from your perspective? And I have a few more questions, but let's just start there.
Yes. I believe that in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, it was all about being a person of leisure. That your success was that you owned land, that you had other people, you had servants that were doing things for you, you had serfs that were working that land that you owned, et cetera, and other caste systems, socioeconomic caste systems globally that were happening at this time. And I think when the industrial age hit, and there was still the chattel slavery that was going on here in the United States, and just the ending of it, I do quotes, that's a bigger conversation, that we as beings got caught up in this idea that we are to have things around us that are constantly making our life easier. And that is to give us this ease and this comfort to being in the world. And I don't know if that necessarily is something that benefited us, especially tied in with the ideas of supremacy culture, of an oppressive society. I think what it did is that it exacerbated the idea of that the lesser than are the ones that need to keep working and working hard. And those of us who have, we get that leisure. We get an understanding of being able to take vacations, buy a new home, buy the latest car that comes out, do these other things, et cetera, and that shows our status. And so we never really let that go, even though that's what the founding fathers who built this nation, the United States, that's what they were espousing at the time. Through genocide, through chattel slavery, all these things. And we've never really let that go. It's always got a new mask, a new face, a new idea about it, but it's still upholding those same ideologies. And for me, that's where this right to comfort comes from. It's kind of snowballed and grown over the generations, but it's still there. And that's the bamboozle.
Yeah, and when I hear you say right to comfort, and what that looks like, it's the right to be, the right to have, the right to do, and to do all of things at a cost at times as well, because it's so steeped into this right, and this right being solely for one person or one group of people that seems to me have shifted the focus from being in support of other people to just wanting the right to.
Yes, and also I don't think we can say all of that without recognizing the extraction of the planet and the harm that that mindset has caused the planet and future generations as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for answering that. And I think we will too come back to this, because when you think about the topic, I am crafting the world, how does that come in? So I'm wondering if, like, unless you want to answer that now, but if we can talk about that. I know we're going to get to it, but that's what we're bringing it in, crafting a world of sharing space with others, and being with others. And that brings me to this too. I want to talk about some of the things we are getting to, like you've brought up a number of times the power with, and being within community or activating within. What does that mean for you, the power with, in the context of moving forward to crafting a world?
Beautiful. Thank you for that question. I feel that there are a lot of folks out there that are using the language of power with. You can put it in search engine, and AI is going to kick back an answer to you, kind of thing. And for me, what it means is that I am co-creating with folks. People understand my ideas of collaboration. People have a base, not just a buy-in, because that then drums up the capitalistic mindset with it. They have an invested interest of their own life and the way that they lived and future generations. It's that ideology that a lot of indigenous peoples and indigenous peoples still on the planet live with, that I'm not doing things right now only for the individual, for my benefit, for my gain. I'm truly looking 7+ generations from now and seeing how what I am doing is affecting that. And I think that's a huge part of the power with ideology. It's this idea that we really are not being extractive or coming from a place of scarcity and fear and dominance and oppression, but we're really coming from that place of seeing each other's humanity, solidarity, the idea of power with instead of power over. I'm in this with you because we as human beings, we were all born with power, you know? And so how do we make sure that we're not taking power from other people and saying, oh, I've got all the ideas, and so just give me your power and I'll go with that. You know, it's like, no, I want to hear your voice. I want to hear what you're saying.
So is it similar to honoring the power and right in others as well versus just the self?
Oh, for sure. And I think that, thank you for that clarity. I think one of the big thought process behind it is, if I am, so when I was in the classroom, I used to tell my theater students, or I'd ask my theater students all the time, who's the most important person on the stage? And their response would be the other person. Because if I'm making sure that I've got my blocking down, my lines memorized, my entrances and exits, my choreography, my notes, whatever it might be, whatever the show is, kind of thing, if I make sure that I have that down, then I know that other people and what they are saying and sharing of the story then can really actively allow all of us to embody these other characters or to bring the truth of the playwright to the stage. And so when I think about this idea of that the most important person is the other person with a power with ideology, it's not, I'm always taking care of everybody else, you know, kind of thing, and I'm not taking care of myself. It's like, no, mind, body, and spirit, I'm taking care of me so I can be of service with others, so that I can give to others, so that I can lovingly support other people and their actions and what they're choosing to bring to this group that we're a part of.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's really important for people to pay attention to that need to perform or do for other or please other persons in with extreme, disregard at times to self. But it's important, in what you're saying is make sure you're centered you have taken care of yourself so that you can be in service to others.
Yes, beautiful. That's a great way to sum it up.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And I also want to know, like in the service of others and with what needs to be activated in the world. And I think about that because sometimes people think that they are sometimes in this journey or on their journey alone, or that the issues that they may see or may be facing may be too big or too large. For them to activate, like it may be beyond them. What do you have to say to that when you have people who are single coming to this, who
Mhm.
maybe want to focus on self and think we're in a world of, what does that mean for me? And is it too big for me to activate?
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of the workshops that I offer and facilitate and that we put out there, we talk about small bite-sized chews,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so I come from a place of introspection first. I really want to understand and know how much of my thinking is my thinking. So when I start asking that question, when I start finding and creating and crafting tools that help me with my lived experience to be able to slough off some of that individualism, slough off some of that extractive mindset or self-deprecating mindset, and or the idea that I don't have any power. Once I start stepping through all of that and starting to realize these things and wanting to be there for other people and not using that as a way to hold myself back by only giving to other people and never looking in the mirror at my own stuff, I start to understand that that small bite-sized choose starts with myself and my inner circle. Who are those that are closest to you? How can we, through this healing process, through this introspective work, how can we then start to shift the ways in which we talk to each other, the boundaries that we set, what we're asking of each other in support of something that we want to get done or to achieve? How can we start asking for certain things for our children, perhaps, from the schools that they attend, maybe from the church or the synagogue or the mosque or wherever it might be? How can we then ask of them to even begin to see us more in a humanity-led way? And that right there, those small bite-sized chews start to ripple out. And I think that that's part of supremacy culture and power over. It helps it feed fear into us by saying that it has to be all or nothing. It has to be the big giant system. We gotta fix the whole thing right now, and it has to be perfect. Otherwise, don't do it. And that's a lie. That's just a flat out bold faced lie, because I believe in fail, first attempt in learning. And so, not until we try multiple ways are we going to start to understand and get to something that is co created and that I feel like I can speak up about and to and be like, hey, this isn't necessarily working. This is still marginalizing this group of people. And I'm going to be heard and I'm going to be seen, and there's going to be a group of people that come together and start looking at that and start to shift things. That's not the way things are done right now. That's not the world that we live in at all. And that's what we've been fed and we've been indoctrinated into us. And so that we think that there's no other way or no other way out. There are plenty of ways. There are just as many ways as there are each of us individually to create and build something that is different and not oppressive.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that, because what I'm hearing from you is that the need to realize that there are multiple ways to doing things. There's no one way. And I think in society, and you see how when things get a little bit heated or people get off center, people go back to what they've been trained, right?
Mhm.
To the pattern. And so I think it's really important to talk about how to disrupt those patterns versus going back to what worked before, what we thought worked before, but it really isn't, or doing this or just that. So I want to just put that here. I don't know if you have a response, but I have so much more to say. But I want to drop that right here because that's a dynamic as well.
Yeah, I totally do. In my one person show, Sweaty Thoughts, I talk about being disruptors and that we need to be disruptors. And I think that that takes on something different for everybody's lived experience. Because to me, that's true diversity, is each one of our lived experience is what really diversifies us. It's not these boxes that we check. I'm this, I'm that. I identify as these things. I've been socialized into identifying as these things. It's more than that. It's the life that we've lived. And so how do I disrupt these indoctrinations? How do I invite myself into being the authentic me? How do I know that I get to do this in a way that it may feel aggressive to somebody else because that's their lived experience or that's their implicit bias of me, and still though stand truthfully in where I'm at and not back down from that and see somebody else's humanity, give them grace, give myself grace, but really still ask for what I want. And I think that that's what is important about being a disruptor. And then I'll say this one other thing that which might come back to later. And this was, I initially got this from Kevin Kumashiro when I saw him speak at Encore last year. And so this is my take on what he said. And he brought up the idea that learning always begets unlearning. And through that unlearning, there's discomfort. And through that discomfort, there's often resistance. So how do we educate ourselves about that resistance? And for my work and what I offer and put out there, how do I invite people to want to see that resistance and want to know where this resistance is coming from? Because a lot of times I think we have discomfort and things that come up and the resistance that comes up and that, oh, we shouldn't be feeling these things. It's kind of like the sadness or the falsity around boys don't cry, right? Or children should be seen and not heard. These are all false. They're all falsities, right? And so the idea is, oh, I've got this resistance to what's going on. I don't want to sit here and re-traumatize myself. Mm-hmm. And yet, if this is just feeling this resistance, I want to know. I want to feel what or know where this is coming from in my lived experience. Maybe it's generational trauma. Maybe it's a trauma that I can lead it to of some kind of bullying or name calling or being marginalized. And that's that finding out that resistance, that's where the disruption needs to happen. That's where we need to disrupt that thought process that I'm not supposed to feel this resistance. That resistance is bad. I don't want to be here. It's like, no, it's going to teach us a lot if we allow it to.
The resistance would teach us a lot if we allow it to. Thank you for sharing that. I kind of want to go back a little bit and come to where we are, because you had talked about ways that people who may, when I asked you a question about people who say, hey, this is bigger than me, you talked about things that people could do, which included going through some introspection, doing some healing work, shifting the ways that we talk to each other, like really also getting with people who they can have a circle with, right? A community that you can build with, and setting boundaries you talked about, and in ways that people can feel empowered is sharing that power with other people, and honoring that in other people, and willing to hear each other's voice. So I heard that from you of really step into this. So it was really like the work that people need to step into and be willing to do in order to get to a place where they feel empowered to take action or do anything.
Beautiful. Yes. Yes. And I feel that part of that that language that we can put around that is that it's healing. It's healing from what I got from Edgar Villanueva and his book, Decolonizing Wealth. In it, he calls it colonizer illness. Mm-hmm. And so that really helped, because there's a lot of people, when I would use the word healing, they didn't get it. It didn't make sense to them. But when I started using the term colonizer illness, and that we start looking at colonization and that mind frame, white supremacy, all those things caused an illness within us called internalized racial oppression, internalized superiority, internalized capitalism. And that is where the healing is needed. And so when we start to heal those aspects of ourselves, and
Mhm.
really start to look at those things, then I can be more present for what I am building. And so some of those ways, so that we're not just like diving right in for some of us into some of those heavier traumatic moments that have occurred in our life, is if we look at smaller bite-sized chews again. So if you sign up on my email list, which you can do on my website, I give out a gentle reminder every Monday. And in that, there are actionables. There are four actionables at the end of each one of those emails. And they're inviting you to get together with that inner circle or with some other folks and to kind of go through what the gentle reminder is asking of you. Usually it involves some type of journal prompt and looking at what comes up through those journal prompts for you, sharing that then with someone in your inner circle or maybe the whole group, possibly getting out in nature, possibly making food together when you do that, possibly inviting them to take it to other inner circles so that it ripples out in that ideology. And that way we break that resistance, we disrupt that resistance that says, oh, these things shouldn't be talked about, or this is really uncomfortable to talk about, I can't be vulnerable, I don't trust people, etc., etc. It helps us to start building that back up again. And a lot of that is indoctrination has broken those things down, and why we find ourselves not wanting to do those things. So how do we disrupt that and create new habits that are
Mhm.
based on getting to the ability to craft a new world and to
Mhm.
do it in a power with ideology?
Mhm. And what is one way one can do that? I know you mentioned bite-sized chews, so it's like taking things one at a time, but it's this healing work and this healing aspect of it that is essential for the process moving forward.
Yes.
So, what do you recommend people step into to begin that healing work?
I learned from someone. Thank you for this question. It's great. I got this from a woman at a conference, and it was a leadership conference, educational leadership conference, and her name is not going to come to me. My deepest apologies. I want to put that out there. Um, she spoke about your power hour. So the 30 minutes before you go to bed, and the 30 minutes when you first wake up. And that disrupts some of our habits because of technology. A lot of us were on our phones at that time. We're on some kind of screen. We're looking at something or scrolling through things where, we think that helps us to go to sleep, kind of stuff. So instead, maybe we use our phones to find some type of music or sound bowls or something that's going to regulate our nervous system. And then what kind of rituals can we put in those first 30 minutes? Journaling to that music, doing some kind of movement meditation to that music, or sitting still and listening to that music, or not even putting music on, not even touching technology. Maybe I'm listening to the sounds of my house or my neighborhood or my apartment. Maybe
Mhm.
I'm listening to nature or something else that's going on out there. And
Mhm.
then I'm creating a new habit. And that's the thing. It takes us at least 90 days. And when
Mhm.
we've got that learning, unlearning going on, right? Which
Mhm.
one of these is going to work for me? None of that you said just now, Matthew, is going to work for me. I need something else. That finding those things out and to not beat ourselves up when we don't instantaneously find it, or when we get 3 months, 6 months down the road and it doesn't work anymore and we need to change things up and shift it. But we still have the habit of that chunk of time before
Mhm.
going to sleep and when we first wake up, of setting up ourselves for a good night's rest and setting up ourselves to lead with power with instead of power over, and not to get sucked into things that actually tear us down and dehumanize us through the course of a day.
Thank you for that. So, really about finding a practice daily of 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening before bedtime when you wake up that can help you maybe center yourselves. That's one way to begin stepping into this process and work of healing. I do want to say this as well. I know a lot of times I'm a practicing therapist, so it's great to have a therapist to help you process some of the things that may have been deep seated or deeply rooted within. So working with the specialist on that, I think, is essential as well. Anything you want to share about that, Matthew?
No, most definitely. I started talk therapy back in 1994 was the first
Mhm.
time. And the last time that I saw or chatted with my therapist was 2 years ago.
Mhm.
So I've had one on and off again throughout all the years. I think it's really integral to some of this work
Mm.
to get to be with somebody who doesn't have a preconceived idea of your story and of your lived experience and can really just hear the truth of what you're trying to say or what you're not saying and how that might be, because there's too much in our world that has been fed into us to put us into this status quo box.
Mhm.
And if we don't have tools to say no and disrupt that, I do not subscribe to that ideology. I need my authentic self to be here. I need to get rid of these masks. I need to get rid of these identities that society expects me to be, and I need to find out who the authentic me is. We need
Mhm.
as many tools as we possibly can get, and a talk therapist uh, brought so much to me. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, thank you for bringing that in.
Thank you for sharing that, Matthew. And those of you who are tuned in with us on LinkedIn, feel free to post any questions that you have throughout the time. We'll look for them and look to answer them. If you are with us on YouTube or Facebook, you can send your questions in, or you can post your comments and we'll come there to where you are and kind of interact that way. So moving forward, I want to check in with you about, how crafting a world, why is that important now? And how can people begin to really step into that process of
Yeah.
crafting a world?
Yes. Well, part of my work, my crafting your equity lens work, is this finishing this statement. I am crafting a world.
Mhm.
And so when I look at that aspect of it, which my equity lens is definitely a tool that helps me disrupt, which is a tool that helps me to see things in a way that are power with, humanity led, building the new. So if I'm looking specifically at I am crafting a world and that aspect of things, I feel right now I've heard from folks, um, this isn't what I voted for, or I can't believe that they're actually doing this. I can't believe that they fired all these people, that they stripped these things away, that they did all this stuff. Um, and for me, it's not about I can't believe this. It's like we, the American society, we gave that power away. And we gave it away through our voting process. We gave it away by waiting or working hard, thinking that we're gonna get our due one day, and we're gonna be just like those millionaires and billionaires and stuff. And it's a falsity. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're looking behind that mask that was America for generation after generation after generation, and we're starting to see how extractive that culture and that society and that ideology was. And so then if we look at some of the other aspects of that and go, we're resilient, we're strong, we're capable, we have the power, we have the love to build a new world. So what does that world look like? And this is the time. We're seeing exactly what we do not want. We have superintendents of school districts saying we're not going to stop doing the DEI work. We have corporations that are like, no, we're keeping our DEI. We're seeing that those corporations that got rid of it, we're seeing that we, the people, have the power and are not shopping with you anymore. So how do we continue to build on that and not rebuild what was always there, but actually truly build something new And that's part of I am crafting a world as well. How do I know? How can I hold myself accountable? Or how do I stay within integrity to some of these ideologies that aren't going to support an oppressive society and an extractive society, one that just is taking from the planet and not looking at those 7 to 14 generations to come.
So you're looking ahead for 7 generations.
Ooh.
You're looking at how people can work together, power with to support one another and to support each other in a way that isn't based on capitalist, but based on how we're taking care of the earth. How are we hearing each other? How are we supporting those next steps? But what I'm also hearing is that I am crafting a world is also based on the individual, right? And when they come to you for this work, what does that look like for them?
Yeah, beautiful question. So the past is our education.
Mm-hmm.
The future is our inspiration. The present moment is our creation. There are a lot of folks right now who do not feel inspired by the future. And they're not willing to look at the past. And that's that introspection that I talked about. It's not about looking at the past for shame and guilt, because that's what we were indoctrinated with. That's what this dominant culture that's happening right now that we're seeing crumble in front of us, that's what it lived off of. It lived off our fear. It lived off our competitiveness. It lived off us fighting really hard to succeed, to step into grind culture and give our all to everything without having any time for ourselves, for our family, for our loved ones, right? And so if I look at that past and get educated from that, and I start to be inspired by my future, the present moment is our creation. So what am I creating right now? I am crafting a world. So that's how it's the individual. The individual needs to ask themselves these things. And that way we can start being, inspired by that future, that have that inspiration about it. And when we come together and start looking and listening to each other, that's the start of seeing each other's humanity and building that trust to share what that vision of the future looks like, to share with each other what our definition of collaboration is, to share with each other boundaries around what we might need to hold ourselves accountable and in integrity with what we are saying that we want to move forward and build.
Holding ourselves in integrity.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful and beautiful. And there are many people who can show up and activate and do that. And you do have people who just have come to the place where they don't see others' humanity.
Correct.
I think we see that a lot. How is that being handled? What are your thoughts when it comes to that? I mean, some people think there's just some people you can't reach or get to. But what are your thoughts about the times where humanity isn't honored or someone else isn't seeing someone else's humanity?
Yeah, I think that's one of my disruption is I don't subscribe to that ideology. We have to find a new way to talk. And I'll shine a light on what language might have been used that was dehumanizing to a group of people. And or I might disrupt and say those kinds of things when we're only talking about numbers. It's only numbers. A lot of judgment, a lot of school board meetings will talk about those metrics. A lot of us talk about metrics and we forget the humans that are behind those numbers. And so do we take some time, and this becomes unique to the different organizations that I work with, right? And depending on what work they've done with me, oftentimes it's how do we share stories about these numbers? Do we, in our meeting, have an opportunity to put a pause on where we were going or what we were saying, and share a story of someone who is part of those numbers that we're discussing and talking about, so that we can put that face back in the room. We can listen to that story. We can have that empathy. We can have those things in the room. Sometimes we move at such a clip thinking, oh, we got to get this much done and get all these things done in this amount of time. What are we hurrying towards? Really? What are we moving so quickly towards that we actually do not see somebody else's humanity and how their humanness is part of the equation that we're working on right now? And that's what I mean, where it becomes unique to the organization, because there's different meetings. There's some people who will never have those numbers. There's some that it's only numbers. And so how do we get folks who only see numbers, who are like, no, that's not that human stuff, that's not part of my job description. Your numbers have humans behind them, and it's important for you to know who they are.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that, Matthew. And it's really about creating the world that people envision that includes humanity, right? That brings people together, that sets boundaries, but it's also healing. And we begin to feel empowered and shift the ways that we speak to each other and interact with each other. And I think in the US right now, specifically, that, like we mentioned earlier on, there's so many things shifting and things are happening fast and people are feeling dysregulated, right, in this journey. But you're giving people some things that they can step into to activate the introspection, doing the healing work, finding a community that you can engage with and support, setting boundaries and supporting each other and giving someone and listening to someone else's voice and also letting your voice be heard. And is there some other way that people can connect with you, work with you on what you may have coming up that may be helpful for organizations who are looking to do this work within their company culture or provide a stronger foundation for I'm Crafting a World, specifically for those organizations that are looking to make a bigger impact and support humanity in different ways?
Yes, Trena. I am offering, I am Crafting a World, and I'm calling it a retreat, because I think that it's important for folks to, as much as they can, disrupt that course of things. So I'm asking organizations for 2 days. I want us to get together for a full day, and in that first full day, we're disrupting those time schedules, we're disrupting those agendas, we're disrupting checking our phone all the time, et cetera, et cetera. We're putting those things out there. There may be a bit of play. There might be, as a theater teacher, there might be some things that we're doing collectively together. We're breathing together. We're disrupting some of those things as we start to synthesize down what is unique to your organization and this group of people that have come together. What is your culture? And then starting to mold that and shift that at the end of the first day. And on the second day, really starting to become what I call culture creators, and being able to cultivate the culture that you are wanting to have at your organization. Being able to start to look at, well, what is that future that you are inspired by? How do we see human beings in that? Is everything only a number? What's behind the numbers? Really looking at those types of things so that we can find that humanity in those human beings there, and so that we can start creating that culture together. And then after the 2 days of the retreat, I have workshops and other things to fully support people in other ways as well, that you can find all of those things on the website. But for right now, to really get out there in this moment of like so many people feeling hopeless or helpless, or just got a whole bunch of energy and ready to focus it and put it somewhere, we've got you. We've got you. And that's I Am Crafting a World, and it's a retreat that we're putting.
I'm Crafting a World retreat. Now, you have a way that people can get in touch with you to talk more about that I Am Crafting a World retreat. And I know it's available via your website. I know you also have a link where people can schedule with you to have this conversation. So I'm going to share that and then share your website again, that if you're looking to craft a world where your organization is supporting the people in your work culture in a different way, people can schedule a time to talk with you via this link here that we're providing, the Calendly link, or they can also visit your website, which is mrrconsulting.org. That's mrrconsulting.org. And I'll show that again as well in a moment. But also, if those of you who have tuned in, if you have questions or comments, you can leave your comments in the comment section below the video of the platform that you're on, and we'll come through and take a look and answer them. Some of them I know I may not be able to see in real time, but we'll be able to come back and answer them. But people can schedule a time with you via your website. They can see your offerings that support individuals and organizations. But you have this retreat. I'm crafting a world retreat for people who are in organizations who want to make do something different to disrupt the patterns and build something better for their culture and for the humans that they're serving.
Beautiful. Yes. And it's also what we were talking about as well, Trena, that there's this energy that is happening right now. Dr. Sanjata made a TikTok earlier today, and he was saying, don't protest, divest. And I didn't get to watch the whole video. I just saw the title of it as that, and heard a little bit at first, but I was pulled to some other place. And so I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch that video. But just from that title, don't protest, divest. Now, I get some people, you need to have something to do. You feel like, I need to be out in the streets. I need to be around other people. I won't tell you not to do that. Please, go do that if that is what you are feeling drawn to, because some of your inner circle might be there.
Mm-hmm.
There might be some new people that it's time to meet them, mm-hmm. and they're going to be in those situations. But that whole word divest, I think, is integral, that we divest from a culture that is about power over, that is all about fear and coercion, that is all about extraction and scarcity. We need to divest from that. But what then am I investing into? What am I activating, right? And that's where I am crafting a world, and this retreat, that's where we can help you. We can start helping you visualize and envision that newness and that building the new that is going to come up out of this energy that is happening right now. We'll give you a place to start to focus that in. And I don't want to say focus it in and get narrow. I want to say focus it in. And so we're going to expand and help you expand into your biggest, fullest, and brightest, individually and as an organization.
Thank you for that, Matthew. Thank you for sharing that and for the work that you do, the impact that you're making with people, individuals, and organizations. And so we invite everyone to visit mrrconsulting.org, or if you know this is the I Am Crafting a World retreat, is a retreat you want to take your organization on or go through with Matthew, be a part of, to schedule a time on Matthew's calendar so that you can begin to craft the world that you're here to create fully, and it be something that's different than what's been happening or maybe what's no longer serving. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Trena. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthew. And for everyone who's tuned in, if you have questions, make sure you post them in the comments section. We'll come back and take a look at them in detail and answer any questions that you have. I will also make sure that these links are posted in the comments section as well. So you have them there on both platforms that we have been sharing to. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk with you soon.
Thank you, Trena. Thank you, everyone.